In the year 1888, a farmer digging in the sand near the Egyptian town of Beni Hassan broke through the earth and found something that made his blood run cold. Bones. Not human bones. Thousands upon thousands of small skeletons packed together in the dark, stretching for what seemed like forever. When archaeologists finally counted them, the number was almost impossible to believe. Nearly 80,000 mummified cats, buried together in a single tomb. And here is the part that still stuns historians today. Most of those cats were killed before they were even a year old. Some were only weeks old. This was not an accident. This was not disease. This was deliberate. An entire industry built around killing and worshiping the same animal at the same time. So what happened here? Why would a civilization that worshipped cats as living gods also breed them by the thousands just to end their lives? That contradiction sits at the heart of one of the strangest relationships in human history, and to understand it, we have to go back, long before the pyramids, long before the pharaohs, back to a time when there were no cats living among humans at all. Before we go there, if you're enjoying stories like this, hit that like button and subscribe to Origin Tales. It genuinely helps us keep digging up stories most people have never heard. Now, back to the sand. Around 10,000 years ago, in the region we now call the Fertile Crescent, something changed the course of human history, and almost nobody noticed it happening. Humans had just discovered farming. For the first time, people were storing grain, wheat, barley, food that could feed a family through winter. But storing grain created a new problem. Where there is grain, there are mice. Where there are mice, there are snakes. And where there are mice and snakes, something else eventually shows up to hunt them. Wildcats. Small, sharp-eyed, solitary predators began creeping toward human settlements, not because humans invited them, but because the rodents did. Nobody trained these cats. Nobody tamed them in the way we think of taming a dog. They simply showed up, ate the pests, and stayed close enough to keep eating. It was not friendship, it was convenience. But convenience, given enough time, has a strange way of turning into something deeper. That was the beginning. The mystery is what happened next. Thousands of miles away, along the banks of a river that would turn this quiet arrangement into something the world had never seen before. The Nile River was not kind in the way people imagine. Every year it flooded, and when the water pulled back, it left behind rich black soil, perfect for growing grain. Egypt became one of the greatest breadbaskets of the ancient world. But that same grain that fed millions of people also attracted an enemy that could destroy everything in a single season. Rats did not just eat food in Egypt. They threatened to collapse entire communities. A swarm of rodents in a grain silo could mean starvation for an entire village by the time winter came. And there was a second threat, one far more dangerous than any rat. Egypt was home to some of the deadliest snakes on the planet, including cobras capable of killing a grown man within hours. Farmers working barefoot in the fields lived with that fear every single day. Then, quietly, almost without anyone documenting the exact moment, cats began appearing near Egyptian villages, and they did something extraordinary. They killed the rats, they killed the snakes, they protected the grain, the children, and the food supply, all without being asked. To the Egyptians, this was not just a helpful animal doing its job. This felt like protection sent from somewhere else, because in a farming society, where one bad harvest meant mass starvation and one snake bite meant sudden death, an animal that fought off both looked less like a pest controller and more like a guardian. But here is where the story takes an unexpected turn. Many ancient Egyptians did not just appreciate cats. Over time, they began to believe cats were something more than animals entirely. Around 4,000 years ago, Egyptian religion began weaving the cat into its most sacred stories. There was Bastet, a goddess who protected the home, guarded women and children, and defended against evil spirits, often shown with the head of a cat. There was also Sekhmet, her more violent counterpart, a lioness goddess associated with war, plague, and the fury of the sun. Many Egyptians believed cats carried a piece of the divine inside them, some connection to Ra, the sun god himself, since a cat's eyes seemed to glow and shift with the light of day. To harm a cat was considered by many to be a crime against the gods. Ancient writings describe outsiders being shocked to witness Egyptian crowds turn violent, even deadly, against anyone caught injuring a cat, even by accident. There are historical accounts of Egyptians risking their own lives running into burning buildings, not to save valuables, but to save the cats trapped inside. And the devotion did not end when a cat's life did. When a household cat died of natural causes, the family was expected to shave off their eyebrows as a public sign of grief. Grown men, farmers, merchants, walking through the streets with shaved eyebrows so everyone could see they had lost a beloved cat. Funeral processions were held. Bodies were embalmed using techniques normally reserved for royalty, wrapped in linen, sometimes with tiny painted faces on the wrappings. Some wealthy families buried their cats in ornately carved sarcophagi. This was not superstition on the fringes of society. This was mainstream, national devotion. But none of this explains the discovery that shocked archaeologists back in 1888. If cats were treated like sacred family members, mourned like relatives, and protected under threat of death, why were tens of thousands of them buried together beneath the desert, many of them barely months old? The answer, it turns out, is darker than most people imagine. As worship of cats grew, so did an industry built around that worship. Pilgrims traveling to temples dedicated to Bastet wanted to offer something sacred to the goddess. One of the most important of these was the city of Bubastis, a major religious center devoted entirely to her, drawing thousands of pilgrims every year during its festivals. Living cats became too precious and too rare to sacrifice individually. So temples began breeding cats specifically to be mummified and sold as religious offerings. Entire cat breeding operations existed near major temple sites, and researchers who later studied the mummified remains discovered something disturbing. Many of these kittens showed signs of having their necks deliberately broken, and some scans revealed they were killed at just a few months old, sometimes even earlier, seemingly bred and sacrificed to meet religious demand rather than living out a natural life. In fact, modern archaeological surveys estimate that roughly 8 million animal mummies, a large number of them cats, have been uncovered across ancient Egypt in total. This forces us to sit with an uncomfortable truth. The same civilization that considered killing a cat one of the worst crimes imaginable was also running mass breeding operations that ended in early death for religious commerce. Devotion and exploitation existing side by side, wrapped in the same golden linen. What do you think about that? Does it change how you see ancient Egypt's relationship with cats? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because historians are still debating how the Egyptians reconciled these two realities in their own minds. While this religious economy grew inside Egypt's borders, cats themselves were becoming something the rest of the ancient world desperately wanted and could not have. Egypt understood exactly what it possessed: a living solution to rodent infestations, wrapped in religious mystique, found nowhere else in such numbers. And Egypt had no intention of sharing it. Strict laws were passed forbidding the export of cats. Guards were stationed to prevent smuggling. Egyptian officials reportedly traveled to foreign lands specifically to buy back Egyptian cats that had somehow been taken out of the country, paying whatever price was necessary to bring them home. For centuries, this worked. Egypt controlled something no army, no treasury, and no trade route could fully replicate. But secrets like this rarely stay contained forever. As Egyptian trade expanded across the Mediterranean, cats inevitably slipped through the cracks, smuggled aboard Phoenician and Greek trading ships, sometimes stolen, sometimes gifted as diplomatic offerings, sometimes simply wandering onto a vessel and never leaving. Slowly, and then not so slowly, cats began appearing in Greece, in Rome, along the coasts of what is now Turkey, Italy, and Spain. Each new region that received a cat saw the same pattern repeat. Grain stores protected, disease-carrying rodents reduced, and within a generation, a strange new fondness beginning to form between humans and this quiet, independent animal that asked for very little and gave so much in return. By the time the Roman Empire rose to power, cats had become common enough that they appear in Roman art, mosaics, and household writings, no longer treated as sacred, but as valued and familiar companions. The religious weight of Egypt had faded, but the usefulness and the affection had traveled with them across the sea. This is the moment the story briefly turns tragic. Because history rarely moves forward without setbacks, and cats were about to face one of the darkest chapters in their long relationship with humanity. Centuries later, in medieval Europe, the very same qualities that once made cats seem divine began to make them seem dangerous. Their independence, their nighttime prowling, their glowing eyes in the dark. As superstition and religious paranoia spread across parts of Europe, cats, especially black cats, became associated with witchcraft and evil omens. Some regions saw mass killings of cats, driven by fear rather than fact. And here is the tragic irony historians point to again and again. As cat populations dropped in certain areas, rat populations exploded. Some researchers believe this population imbalance may have worsened the spread of disease-carrying fleas during the era of the Black Death, one of the deadliest pandemics in human history. An animal once worshipped as a protector against plague may have been persecuted right as humanity needed that protection most. A small decision, driven by fear rather than understanding, carried consequences far larger than anyone at the time could have imagined. It took centuries for that fear to fade, but it did fade, and slowly, across Europe, Asia, and eventually the entire world, cats clawed their way back into human homes, human cities, and human hearts. Fast forward to today, and the numbers are almost hard to comprehend. There are now more than 600 million domestic cats living alongside humans across the planet. In the United States alone, cats are one of the most popular pets in the country, found in tens of millions of households. Cat cafes exist in Tokyo, Seoul, London, and New York. Cat videos generate billions of views online every single year. Internet culture practically runs on cat memes and cat content. And almost nobody realizes that this global obsession has roots stretching back 4,000 years to farmers in Egypt who once believed the animal curled up on their porch might be carrying a piece of the sun god inside it. Think about that the next time you see a cat account go viral. That same instinct, that same fascination, that same willingness to treat a small, independent creature as something almost magical. It never really left us. It just changed shape. And here's the twist almost nobody expects. Genetic studies published in recent years suggest that a large share of domestic cats alive today, regardless of where in the world they live, trace significant ancestry back to a wild cat population that once roamed North Africa, the same region where ancient Egypt rose to power. In other words, that quiet arrangement between hungry farmers and hunting wildcats formed roughly 10,000 years ago, followed by Egypt's obsession with the animal thousands of years later, may be a major reason so many house cats exist across the world today. Not dogs, domesticated largely through active human breeding and control. Cats appear to have domesticated themselves to a significant degree, choosing to stay close to us generation after generation on their own terms. Maybe that explains something many cat owners already sense but can never quite put into words. A dog chooses loyalty. A cat chooses you. So think back to that discovery in 1888. 80,000 mummified cats buried in silence beneath the desert for thousands of years. At the time, most of the world saw it as nothing more than a strange archaeological curiosity, a mass grave with no clear explanation. But now we understand what those bones actually represent. Not a mystery to be dismissed, but a doorway into one of the strangest, most contradictory, most emotionally complicated relationships in all of human history, a relationship built on hunger and protection, worship and exploitation, superstition and near-total devastation. And somehow, against every obstacle history threw at it, that relationship survived and grew until it became one of the most common bonds on the planet. What started as a simple act of survival, a hungry animal following food, a desperate farmer grateful for the help, slowly turned into something no one could have predicted. It became one of the longest lasting partnerships between humans and animals in all of recorded history, older than most religions, older than most nations, older than almost every relationship we consider natural today. Empires rose and collapsed. Gods were worshipped and forgotten. Entire belief systems disappeared into the sand. But this one bond, quiet, stubborn, and largely on the cat's own terms, never actually broke. It simply followed us forward, century after century, all the way into the modern world. The next time a cat curls up beside you, completely unbothered, completely in control of the room the way it has always been, remember what that small animal actually represents. Not just a pet, not just an internet trend, a living thread connecting you directly back to ancient Egyptian temples, sacred goddesses, desperate farmers protecting their only food supply, and a bond between two species that neither one of them ever really had to choose, but somehow chose anyway. What do you think the world would look like today if that first wildcat had never wandered toward that first grain store 10,000 years ago? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story pulled you in the way it pulled me in while researching it, make sure you're subscribed to Origin Tales, because this is only the beginning of the stories we still have to tell.